The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be inducting a player into the Ring of Honor for the first time since 2019. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. Which games are going to make or break the Buccaneers this season, and some severe disrespect thrown the Bucs away? That's all coming up in a little bit, but let's start with some big news, and that is that the Buccaneers are inducting Simeon Rice into the Ring of Honor this season, and this is one of the players that has deserved to go up for a very long time. Now, while my prediction was Tom Brady, there's no question that the two players that I have felt should have been in the Ring of Honor years ago were Simeon Rice and James Wilder, and at least one of them is going in now. Rice was, of course, a key member of the Buccaneers' first Super Bowl team, as he came in and made one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL even better. Rice joined the Buccaneers after spending the first 5 years of his career in Arizona, and he joined the Bucs in 2001, played for them until 2006. Over those 6 seasons, Rice racked up 69.5 of his 122 career sacks, while also getting selected to the Pro Bowl twice, a first-team All-Pro, a second-team All-Pro, and having double-digit sacks for 5 straight seasons. Rice also managed to get 19 of his 28 career forced fumbles, 37 of his 43 passes defensed, 67 of his 93 tackles for loss, and just for good measure, his only career safety during his time in Tampa. Rice led the league in forced fumbles in 2003 with 6, a mark that he would hit 2 times with the Buccaneers. Unfortunately, Rice's career went downhill starting with his final year in Tampa, before he tried to play one more season in 2007, splitting it with the Broncos and the Colts, but injuries derailed the end of what should have been a Hall of Fame career. Up until 2006, when Rice played only 8 games for the Bucs that season, he had missed a total of 2 games over the course of his first 10 years. Rice was an absolute wrecking ball for the Bucs in the postseason on their way to Super Bowl 37. In that postseason, he had 4 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. 2 of those 4 sacks came against Rich Gannon in the Super Bowl, where Rice might have been in the conversation for MVP of the game had Dexter Jackson and Dwight Smith not both had 2 interceptions. And of course, Dwight Smith returned both of his for touchdowns. He was in Gannon's face all game long, created an absolute nightmare for the league's reigning MVP in his only Super Bowl appearance. As I said before, Rice is the first Bucs player that the team will induct into the Ring of Honor since 2019, when they inducted Rondé, and he becomes the 16th member of the Ring of Honor. Simeon is going to join Leroy Selman, John McKay, Jimmy Giles, Paul Gruber, Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, Mike Allstott, Doug Williams, John Gruden, John Lynch, Tony Dungy, Rondé Barber, Malcolm Glazer, Monty Kiffin, and Bruce Arians. Now, I have to believe that it's an absolute slam dunk that the induction happens week 13 against the Cardinals. For those that watched the video announcement that the Buccaneers dropped on social media, I think there was a little foreshadowing going on when Gruden was pulling props out of a giant box that tied to each game. When it came to the Cardinals, It was a Simeon Rice jersey. And Gruden held it up and he said, quote, when I think of the Arizona, and no, I'm not going to do a John Gruden impression, but he said, quote, when I think of the Arizona Cardinals, I think of Thomas Jones. We traded for him and he played great for us in Tampa Bay. We had Michael Pittman come in here, the leading rusher of Super Bowl 37 that helped us get a championship. But the biggest Arizona Cardinal we got that they didn't seem to want was Simeon freaking Rice. 100+ sacks, premier edge rusher in the game. God, I bet he would love to play against Arizona, end quote. That line, the biggest Arizona Cardinal we got that they didn't seem to want, I think that speaks volumes about the mentality of Simeon Rice. It means that it was always personal for Simeon, that he was always angry for letting him walk. Now, obviously, it worked out great for Simeon. He got a ring, he got all-pro nods, but having the team that drafted you third overall not want to bring you back, that had to have eaten away at him for years and years. So for him to be inducted while that franchise is the one that's in town playing against the Buccaneers makes a ton of sense. And I'm going to go back to something that Evan talked about on Wednesday's show when we were discussing the Ring of Honor. And, Evan had said that you see teams do these inductions when they need a little extra interest in the game. The Cardinals are not going to be a big draw, and that game is Thanksgiving weekend. Having the induction during halftime of that game might get a few extra people in the stands that maybe wouldn't normally have been there. And honestly, you might even see some Cardinals fans take advantage of the holiday, come into Tampa to go to that game. I hope that there aren't a ton of Cardinals fans there, but it could happen. And I think that a lot of Cardinals fans were upset that they let Simeon walk, that they always liked him and they wanted him to be back. So they didn't hold any ill will towards Simeon moving on and doing what he did with Tampa. I think you might get a few extra people with this added incentive. There might have also been a little foreshadowing at the draft when Simeon announced the Bucs picks on day 2, a couple of defensive guys. So the franchise had already reached out to him to be a representative of the team just a few weeks ago. Maybe that's even when they told him, like, hey, we want you to go announce our draft picks at the NFL draft on day 2 because we want to put you back in the spotlight associated with this franchise because, Simeon, we are going to put you in the Ring of Honor in the 2025 season. There's nothing official yet as far as what week it will be, but there is a press conference on Monday that will make the official announcement. Simeon will be there. He'll have a Q&A with the media, but I love the selection of Simeon Rice. I'm still holding out hope that Wilder finally does happen soon, but I don't think anyone can be upset that Rice is going to be forever enshrined in Raymond James Stadium. Also, I feel it's worth noting because you all know me, you everydayers, you know how I am, and you know that I love my Illinois Fighting Illini. Well, Simeon Rice was inducted into the University of Illinois Hall of Fame in 2019. So at least they were able to recognize that he's Hall of Fame worthy, even if the voting committee of the Pro Football Hall of Fame doesn't. What games are going to make or break the Buccaneers season? That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. NFL schedule release just dropped, and you better believe I'm already looking at my fall calendar and picking which games to hit. Game Time makes scoring NFL tickets just as easy. With the Game Time guarantee, your tickets are 100% authentic. They will arrive on time, and you'll always get the best price with fees included, so you see exactly what you're going to pay. I'm a big fan of the view from your seat option when I'm looking at tickets and trying to decide where I want to sit, because I want to scope out the absolute best possible view when I make that decision. It's just another way that Game Time is the best place around to get your tickets to sporting events, theater, comedy, concerts, and more. And I know a lot of you are looking at that Week 4 Buccaneers-Eagles matchup, trying to get into Raymond James to see that one. Game Time is the place to go. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. So find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. After some reflection about the schedule drop, I was thinking about the way it kind of took shape and kind of realized that there are three key games for the Buccaneers this year that are really going to decide where they are in the landscape of the NFL. Now, if you're Henry McKenna of Fox Sports and you picked the Panthers to win the division because, as he put it, it won't take much before he praised all of the moves that they made, then maybe you don't care about the games that are going to make or break the Bucs because you think the Panthers are going to win the South. And look, I get that they're going to be better. I believe they're going to be better. I've talked about it a lot. You guys know that. But let's chill a little bit because the Bucs made plenty of improvements and additions as well, and they're coming off of a 10-win season when this schedule in 2025, theoretically, on paper, is easier than last year when they won 10 games. Anyway, I got to thinking about which games are truly the most important. For the sake of this argument, I did not include any divisional games in my thought process. Those are obviously the most important because the easiest path to the playoffs is winning your division, and the easiest way to win your division is to win those divisional games. But beyond that, I have circled three key games that I think will set the tone for what the season is going to be. I'll go in order of the schedule, not order of importance. So I'm going to start this off with week 2 against the Houston Texans on Monday Night Football. And although it's kind of weird to have an AFC opponent on here, you guys know throughout the season, I always talk about if you're going to lose a game, lose it to the AFC team because it's not really going to play into the tiebreakers. It's not going to have a huge impact beyond your win-loss record when it comes to playoff implications. But I think this is a game that can set the tone for the Bucs early in the season, especially if they're coming off of a road win against the Falcons in week 1. The Buccaneers are 1-5 against the Texans all time. The only time they beat them was in 2003. So they have lost 5 straight games, including that collapse in 2023 when Houston won 39-37 after the Bucs jumped out to a 17-7 lead. They led 23-16 in the third quarter. They allowed 17 fourth quarter points to Houston, and they gave up the game-winning touchdown drive with just 46 seconds left in the game when they were leading 37-33. Now they travel back to Houston for the second time in 3 years in a place where they haven't beaten the Texans. In fact, going back to the Oilers days, the Bucs haven't won a game in the city of Houston since ever. They played the Oilers in Houston in 1976, 1980, 1989, and 1995, and they lost all of them. So to go up against the defending AFC South champions, regardless of how you feel about that division as a whole, but you're going up against them in their house in prime time that early in the season, it's going to speak volumes. We're going to see if CJ Stroud looks more like he did his rookie year or like he did last season. But we're talking about a team that has an absolutely outstanding defense, and they have offensive weapons all over the place. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Christian Kirk, Jaden Higgins, and Jalen Knoll, the rookie receivers that they just brought in, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon. They upgraded their offensive line. They brought in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who knows the Bucs all too well. This is going to be a brawl, and it's going to be in primetime, where the Bucs haven't won a regular season primetime game since Christmas Day 2022, when they barely beat the Cardinals. If you want to be taken seriously and you want to show the world what this team is capable of, it starts week 2 on ESPN and Monday Night Football. The next game is, of course, the Eagles in week 4. I mentioned it on yesterday's show, but the Bucs have beaten the Eagles 6 out of their last 7 meetings, and they've beaten them in Tampa 4 out of the last 5 times. Eagles fans are going to use the excuse that they were injured and they were missing guys in the last 2 meetings. But the regular season game last year, talking about the regular season last year and the playoff game the season before, but those haven't been close games. Over the last couple of matchups, they have not been close. 33-16, 32-9, 31-15, 28-22 was close. 27-21 was close, but then 45-17 when Winston went absolutely bananas in Philly. But since the arrival of Todd Bowles, the Eagles are averaging 17.4 points per game against the Bucs. The Bucs are averaging 27 points per game, and that's with 3 different offensive coordinators over a span of 5 years. They are the defending champions, and they have weapons on weapons on weapons. Offensively, they are a nightmare to match up against. Defensively, they can take away the passing game. They can take away the run game. They can get in your quarterback's face and knock him around, bringing the pressure from anywhere on the field. The Eagles are a fantastic football team. But if the Bucs want to be in the conversation among the best teams in the NFC, if they want the world to take notice that they are more than just a team that has taken advantage of a weak division the last couple of years, and that they truly are for real, then they have to be able to win that game, especially at home. The Eagles have won in Tampa 1 time since 2014. There are going to be plenty of Eagles fans in the stands for that one. You know it. I know it. We hate it. But the Bucs have to find a way to match their tone. Bucs fans have to find a way to drown out the Eagles fans. But the Bucs have to do it on both sides of the ball. They have to make Hurts run for his life, and they have to bring pressure against him. They have to shut down Saquon Barkley. They have to make life miserable for A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Jahan Dotson. They have to force turnovers. They have to make Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and Zach Bond non-factors. Mike, Chris, Jalen, Amika, they have to get open against arguably the best secondary in the league. Bucky has to find lanes to get chunk plays. This is going to be one of, if not the most difficult game that the Bucs are going to have all season. And it makes me a little bit concerned that the Jets game is sandwiched in between the Texans and the Eagles. And it might cause the Bucs to get caught slipping and looking ahead in week 3. Finally, I'm going to go with the Rams game. And I know you can easily make an argument for the Lions here, but here's why I'm going with the Rams. First, it's another primetime game, and you're saying, James, so is the Lions. I get that. But more importantly, the Bucs just cannot seem to find a way to beat those stinking Rams. Now, they won their most recent meeting in 2022 by a score of 16-13. But before that, the Rams had won 3 straight, including the heartbreaker in the divisional round. Then they would go on to win the Super Bowl that year, a Super Bowl that should have been Tampa's. They should have gone back-to-back. Now, the Bucs are 1-1 in Los Angeles since the Rams moved back. But historically, against the Rams in their house, it hasn't been pretty. The Bucs are 2-9 on the road against the Rams, with the wins coming in 2019 and 2001. They lost the most recent game in LA in 2021. They lost 4 out of 4, including 3 straight in St. Louis, and lost their first 4 games in LA from 1977 through 1987. The Bucs are 10-19 all time against the Rams, with a losing record on the road as well as a losing record at home. They just can't seem to shake them. A lot of experts and pundits love the Rams this year. Granted, they love the Rams every year, but I'm seeing people pick the Rams to win this Super Bowl. Honestly, I personally don't see it. I don't think Devontae Adams is a huge upgrade over Cooper Kupp. I'm not sure how much Stafford still has in the tank, but what I do know is that Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL over the last decade, and no matter who he has on the field, he always has a plan that gives the Rams a chance. This is a game that can catapult the Bucs into their final stretch of the season. The stretch that I said on yesterday's show was the toughest of their schedule. This is where they can again show everyone on a national stage who they are and what they're about. That all those people that are high on the Rams and didn't give the Bucs a second thought are going to have to reevaluate who the best teams in the NFL are. These are the games that I circled where the Bucs have a chance to go off and say, we arrived. These are playoff teams, defending champions. They can really get that primetime cloud to finally go away. Outside of the Lions, these might be the three most difficult games that the Bucs play all season. And while I would thoroughly enjoy seeing each of them win each of these games by 20 or more points, I think these are also games where it's going to come down to Baker showing that he's one of the best clutch quarterbacks that the league has to offer right now. Because late in these games, it's going to be on his shoulders to make the right read, the right decision, and the smart throw. That is when we are going to know if the Bucs truly are contenders. Nonsensical disrespect thrown Tampa's way. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Wrapping things up here on a Friday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. And all right, this is dumb. Okay, it's really, really dumb. I saw it while I was scrolling through Twitter, and I had to include it in this show because the sheer absurdity of this claim made me basically laugh from how unbelievably ridiculous it is. So Cody Benjamin of CBS Sports dropped an article last week ranking the top 10 wide receiver duos in the NFL. Now, I don't know Cody personally. I've never met him. I haven't interacted with him at the combine. I've never met the guy. Maybe he's an awesome dude. Maybe we would hit it off and become best friends. But this take makes me wonder what on earth is going on between that guy's ears. He has the duo of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin ranked 9th. Yes, 9, as in Emeka Egbuka's number. Meaning there are 8 other duos in the NFL that he believes are better than Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Benjamin said, quote, if the Jaguars have youth, the Buccaneers have experience. Evans has been a lock for 1,000 yards as a go-to target his entire 11-year career, while Godwin has fought through injuries to be equally effective as a possession receiver. So long as they're upright, they're among the game's most reliable. Okay, that all sounds well and good. Still don't love the injury-prone tag that keeps getting thrown at Godwin. I will die on the hill that he has suffered 2 catastrophically fluky injuries. He is not injury-prone the same way Jamel Dean or Carlton Davis or Christian McCaffrey or T. Higgins, who I'm going to talk about in a minute. He's not injury-prone like those guys. But the duos that Cody Benjamin has ranked higher, Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel of the Commanders, Tyreek and Waddle in Miami, Puka and Devontae with the Rams, Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams in Detroit, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens in Dallas, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison in Minnesota, Jamar and T. Higgins in Cincinnati, and then A.J. Brown and Devontae Adams in Philadelphia. Are you out of your mind? First off, Cody Benjamin is an Eagles fan. Wrote a book about their Super Bowl run. He is a certified Eagles fan. But on what planet are either of the Commanders' receivers better than Evans and Godwin? No disrespect to them. Nothing but love for our guy, David Harrison, there over at Locked On Commanders. I like McLaurin. And I think that the Commanders duo should be in the top 10, but not over Evans and Godwin. Not to mention, you knocked Godwin for his injury history, but conveniently overlooked that for Deebo, who actually is injury prone. Then you have Tyreek and Waddle. Okay, Tyreek's a unicorn. He's one of the best offensive threats in the league. But I've never seen a top receiver drop more passes than Jalen Waddle does on a consistent basis. And the two of them combined for barely, if you combine the two of them, they barely got more touchdowns than Godwin did last season. Then the Rams. Puka is a rising star. He's incredible to watch. Adams, I am telling you now, he's on the downside. He is on the decline. He is on the back nine of his career. He is not the weapon he once was. Also, the two of them combined for as many touchdowns as Evans had last year by himself, and he missed a month. Detroit, I can see the argument. Okay. I'm not going to come on here and pound the table that Evans and Godwin are the best wide receiver duo in the league, because while I don't think Jameson is anywhere close to as reliable as Godwin, I also think that Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably the third best receiver in the league. I get that Jameson Williams, when he's on, is incredible. He's a phenomenal deep threat. He does make some tough catches. That duo is really, really good. So I get it. I'm not going to dog Cody for that one. I will, however, dog him for putting Lamb and Pickens above Evans and Godwin. George Pickens is a certified head case. And if you think for 1 second that he isn't going to have full-blown meltdowns, screaming at Dak Prescott over the targets that Lamb is getting when his plummet compared to what he got in Pittsburgh, then you haven't been paying attention to who George Pickens is. Not to mention, he barely caught 50% of his targets last season when he had over 100 of them. And again, the two of them, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, combined for fewer touchdowns than Mike Evans had by himself. The Vikings, again, I get it. I don't think Addison is a better overall receiver than Godwin, but he is certainly good enough when paired with the best receiver in the league for them to come in ahead of the Bucs. I'm not going to knock Cody for that one, though I will be really interested to see how that duo does with J.J. McCarthy as the quarterback this season. Number 2, the Bengals. Absolutely freaking not. Jamar is the second best receiver in the league. That's my rankings. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those are my top 3. But T. Higgins is not special. He's average. He misses as many games a season as Jamel Dean, and he's nowhere close to being better than Evans or Godwin. If Godwin keeps his pace for the full season last year, Jamar Chase isn't winning the Triple Crown. Chase is the best of the 4 receivers named here, but Evans and Godwin are a lot closer to Jamar Chase than T. Higgins is to Evans and Godwin. So just based on that ranking alone, the Bucs come in ahead of the Bengals because they have number 2 and 3 out of 4. Benjamin even goes on to say that they're ranked number 2 on his list because of Chase. Well, then they should be bumped down because you made this ranking of duos. You want to praise Chase, then make a top 10 of the best receivers, not the best receiving duos. So that completely nullifies their ranking based on your own words. Finally, the Eagles. Okay, we know Benjamin is an Eagles fan, but you know what? It's fine. They're the defending champs. They're both really good receivers. I'm not going to knock A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith. I'm not going to nitpick this one. They actually complement each other a lot like Evans and Godwin complement each other. Now, they did combine for fewer touchdowns than Evans and Godwin did with a lot more games played, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to give them the higher ranking. Fine, I won't argue it. So at worst, the Bucs should have been ranked 4th. Eagles, Vikings, Lions, Bucs. Those are your top 4 receiving duos in the NFL. Put them in whatever order you want. And honestly, it's an absolute joke that the number 10 duo on this list was Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. Hunter hasn't set foot on an NFL field. You have no idea if he's going to be any good or not. So putting him already as half of the 10th best receiving duo is asinine. This was simply a list that was put together to hype up your favorite team, hype up a rookie, and then give big markets more attention. Be better, Cody. That is a joke. Thank you all for coming to my TED Talk. Thank you for enjoying another epic James soapbox rant. But that got me fired up because it's absolutely absurd. And if Cody sees this and he wants to come on the show and debate his list with me, I'm all for it because you're not going to win. You will not win this debate. It will be full blown. For those of you that are my age and you remember the old show Cold Pizza, we're talking this is an old school Woody Page, Skip Bayless throwdown. You will not win this argument. You won't come anywhere close to winning this argument because the disrespect that was shown to Evans and Godwin in this ranking is laughable. That's going to do it for this episode. We will be back on Monday with more to talk about. In fact, had somebody reach out to me about some, an interview that went down with Rachaad White. I'm going to react to a lot of that on Monday's episode. So plenty of running back talk coming up on Monday. But until then, please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @Yarcho_Bucs. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. And become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.